2000 Honda Odyssey. We're going to clean out the EGR ports. I'm Brian Nessick from How To Automotive. I'm going to walk you through the process of doing that. Okay, we're going to get started by removing the top cover. We're going to remove the air snorkel and remove these two little side covers here. So I'm going to get started by taking the 410s out. Now I'm going to take a flat blade screwdriver and turn the tabs quarter turn counterclockwise and lift the cover off. Phillips screwdriver, remove the clamp at the throttle body. Now that I got the hose clamp loose, I'm going to pull the pipe out, the vent pipe that goes to the snorkel here. Just pull it out and then pull the boot off. And then also, if there's any of the hoses connected to the side of the boot, go ahead and just pop those out of there. So I'm going to pull it out like this. And there's a vent line on the opposite side here, and pop that off too. And remove the whole snorkel. Next, I'm going to remove the 4 12mm bolts that are on the throttle body itself. So there's going to be one here, one here, one here, and one here. And you can go ahead and unplug the electric. Now that you got all the bolts off the throttle body, you're just going to pull it off and just leave it hanging right here. Now we're going to remove the vacuum line that goes from here. Remove that off here. Remove it on the other end. We're just going to leave it in the bracket here. Remove the vacuum line there and the electrical connector for the temp sensor there. So now we're going to remove the 6 bolts and 3 nuts that hold the intake manifold to the upper plenum on. So now I'm going to just remove the vacuum hose and put it aside. And then we're going to lift the plenum off completely. And then there's this vacuum hose that goes to the brake booster. You can take this off now. There's also one more vent line that goes from the valve cover back to the intake manifold to separate it. And then you can remove the whole upper plenum out. Now you can unplug the electrical connector for the EGR valve and take the 2 bolts that hold it on off and take your EGR valve off. Okay, since we got the EGR valve off, this port right here, and this is the one that plugs up. And this is the other side of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to clean out from here. It kind of has like a little bend in here. It gets in right about halfway down here is where it usually plugs up. So we're going to use a combination of a carb spray, speedo cable, and run it through here. Okay, so before we get started cleaning the port out, what I did was I took the gasket off and then I stuffed these rags in there as preventive maintenance for nothing to fall in there. And we only want to clean this port right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by taking some carb spray and spraying it in here and let it really good and soak. So after spraying quite a bit in there, I'm going to let it sit for 5 or 10 minutes and let that soak, and I'll spray a couple more every couple minutes and keep spraying it in there. So the tool I'm going to use to clean up this port is an old speedometer cable and my drill, and we're going to use it like a snake, like you would clean out your toilet. So I'm running the snake through the EGR side below, and I'm lightly pushing with the cable and spinning it in slowly. And I'll keep doing this and spraying with the carb spray every so often. And you're going to do that until when you spray the carb spray on the top port and it runs out on the bottom here real fast. It's just as fast as you spray it in. Because, like I said, about midway through is where it plugs. So you can also run the cable this way down and run it in that way and then pull it out. And sometimes I've actually gotten them where they actually come all the way through, depending on how severe. Kind of hard, you just got to keep working it. You can also use a combination of compressed air and the carb spray to help clean out the passageways. One other thing you could do is go ahead and clean the throttle body out since you already have it off, and it's easier now. You can get to the back of it really easily. So now I'm going to go ahead and wipe off the surface, put on new EGR gasket back on, put the EGR valve back on, and tighten the two 12mm bolts down and plug in the electrical connector. So now that the EGR valve is back on, I'm going to pull the rags out, and I'm going to look down the ports with my flashlight and make sure nothing fell in. And then after that, I'll put a new gasket on and slip the plenum back down over the studs. The torque specs that I torqued the EGR valve down was 16 foot-pounds. So now I'm going to put my intake back on, but before I do, I'm going to go ahead and plug the brake booster back in and the vent hose that went on the back of the PCV. Go ahead and plug that back in. It's a little easier with it kind of off like this. And after I get that plugged in, I'll set the plenum back over the studs here. Just maneuvered everything out of your way. So now I'm going to start all the nuts and bolts, including the vacuum line that went on here, and I went ahead and routed it and plugged it in, and plugged the vacuum lines over here on, and plugged the electrical connector for the temp sensor in, and plugged the vacuum line on over here on this port. So now what I'm going to do in a crisscross pattern, I'm just going to run these down real lightly until they just barely touch in a crisscross pattern like this. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to torque all of them down to 16 foot-pounds. That is the specs that was recommended for this. So I'll torque them down in that same crisscross pattern, working from the inside out. And then once that's all done, I will replace my throttle body gasket, and then slide the throttle body back on, and put the bolts and nuts on it and torque those down. Now I'm going to reinstall the air boot and plug in all the hoses that clipped on the side, and the vent lines on this side, and the vent line on this side. So I'm going to start by putting this end on the air filter box first, and then put it on the throttle body. Now I'm just going to plug in any electrical connectors and the vent lines and stuff. I'll just plug those all back in, and then put the top covers back on. And when you plug in the electrical connectors and stuff, you want to make sure it's routed through the little looms here, so it doesn't get caught up in the throttle cable or anything like that. So you want to make sure it's routed right, and then tighten up the clamp for the throttle body. Now I'm going to reinstall the two covers. You just put them on over the little ports and turn the little lock tabs. Now you're going to put the top cover back on, tighten the four 10mm bolts, and that'll complete the EGR port cleaning on a 2000 Honda Odyssey with the 3.5 liter engine. I'm Brian Esslick from How To Automotive. I'd like to thank you guys for watching my videos. I encourage you to stop by the website at howtoautomotive.com for more valuable videos like this. Thank you again.